All right, good morning, everybody. Today I am joined by Ian Shaffer, a senior product specialist at Shimadzu Scientific Instruments, a leading analytical solution provider. Hi, Ian. This is your second time on the show. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Excellent. Well, what is it that you wanted to talk to us about today?
So I just wanted to cover a little bit about the System GC program at SSI, and then kind of talk about some of the new technologies and how they've really helped us push our product even further. The System GC program at SSI is founded on customizations and some of these standardized methods that we're seeing commonly in the field, whether it's something like an ASTM method, a natural gas method, or maybe something novel like a greenhouse gas method, or we try to focus on some of the markets that require a little bit more customization. And so with that, we really need to continually improve the technologies and keep an eye on various trends in the market and how we can improve and simplify it for our users.
Are these customer requests coming to you for sort of custom setups, or are they more you guys are leading the charge and saying, these are the trends and these are the new things that we need to see, or both?
What I normally see is a list of components, and then kind of using our expertise, we put our minds together and come up with a column setup that will do that, and then make sure that we always have the right detectors and the right hardware to kind of meet that need.
I see. So customers in the US or the world could come to you and say, I'm trying to separate and analyze these compounds. Can you help me? And you'll put together a system that'll do it and better than anyone else.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So one of the main technologies that has really kind of revolutionized our approach on the GC-2030, our flagship model right now, is the use of actually ARC's Jetanizer. Just to cap that, the Jetanizer is basically a drop-in injet methanizer. No additional hardware is required, which I love because that means that there's a lot less plumbing that I have to do, a lot less gymnastics. But it is using essentially a proprietary catalyst that is a lot more resistant to sulfur, oxygen, things like that. So in kind of a traditional setup, our methanizer, we had to always have an extra valve to say, cut the oxygen away from there if we're doing a permanent gas analysis, to see CO2, CO, and then sometimes methane, because that's normally very, very close to the CO peak on a lot of the columns that we use. With the Jetanizer now, we can just have basically our injection, have everything go right to the methanizer, and just kind of simplify our whole setup that way.
Oh, interesting. So instead of having to hard cut out the oxygen, you can just send everything right to the jet.
Exactly. And really cool thing, I'm glad I've gotten to work with this. It has simplified our designs a lot. We have been working with a few prototypes, and what we actually found is that rather than killing the catalytic activity, the oxygen actually helps clean the jet. So it's pretty amazing stuff. We also kind of put it through its paces with regards to sulfur analysis. So something that we do see frequently with like flue gases, things like that, there will be sulfurs present as well. And even with that, we've had really good success running it on our GC-2030. So it's really opened the horizons of the configurations that we can do while keeping it simple for the customer as well.
Well, that's good to hear. That's of course what we were hoping when we invented this, that it would be more robust and solve some of these issues. When the oxygen comes out, does it cause a little peak in your chromatogram?
Occasionally, we will see a small peak, but for the most part, it's very, very small. So when you hit it with high percentages, you might see a little bit of a deflection. But for the most part, we've shot mixtures of CO, methane, CO2, and we're still able to get very repeatable results. And we have actually worked a little bit on kind of the troubleshooting on the off chance that we do get a deflection from oxygen. And so one of the things that we found is that you can bake out the jet basically by just turning off the hydrogen for what we have, leave it sit there for a couple hours, and that's enough to actually recover the catalyst.
Awesome. So who's this intended for then? What kind of customers do you see that are asking for this or needing this?
So there's actually a pretty broad range of customers that have been requesting this. Anyone that's really looking at permanent gases will benefit from being able to see ppm level to, up to 90+% CO2. We're seeing this a lot in greenhouse gas analysis, for example. We're seeing this in kind of the carbon capture, green energy side of the field, but we are also seeing it somewhat in petrochem as well, because they are monitoring their discharges. And flue gas is a common analysis for this, where you do have to monitor your CO2 output. A lot of different technologies, a lot of different fields. So
Great. Yeah, and did you want to talk about the GC at all? So this is the GC-2030 for those that aren't familiar with, the Shimadzu's newest model. Anything you wanted to say about that?
Sure. Yeah, so the GC-2030 has been a great model for us so far. It's really, really flexible in the different configurations that we can put it. We're always adding new technologies, like we have a gas selector. Helium's expensive right now, hard to get. So we have ways of cutting down helium consumption. We have our gas saver mode that helps, again, conserve gas. We have an oven light, which, as ridiculous as it sounds, it's actually so convenient to have, so that you can actually see inside your oven and you're not just trying to squint and, put your little capillary column in there. It actually is an amazing feature to add a lot of flexibility. We also have some other technologies like our click tech to make column switching easier, and a lot of other things to really kind of bring this into as user-friendly of an application and a system as we can.
Awesome. Yeah, you joke about it, but I've played around with headlamps and flashlights, trying to get into a GC before. So that is a nice feature to have that light.
It really is. And what's funny is I've worked on some of our older models recently, and you don't realize how much you miss it until you don't have it. So,
yep. The other thing I found really cool about the 2030 is that it's all stainless. There's not a lot of aluminum in that design, unlike some of the other manufacturers, and it's got a more solid kind of nice feel to it. So Ian, what are the tips and tricks for using the Jetanizer with the GC-2030?
So the way the jet is designed, you really have to kind of be mindful of your insertion depth, bearing in mind that the temperature is going to be elevated for this analysis. So in order to not burn the end of the column, typically what I've been doing is using either fused silica or metal capillary, have a short stretch of that at the end of the column, and put that right into the jet. So this does two things. Typically for CO2 or CO, basically any of your gas analysis, you're going to need some kind of plot column, packed column, something like that. This will help serve as both a particle trap as well as giving you a little bit of distance away from the column and the 400C methanizer.
I see. So you do a little zero dead volume union then from the column to the retention gap?
Yep.
The fused silica. Yeah.
Either that or a particle trap, depending on which column is being used. But
okay.
It works great.
Yeah. And so Shimadzu sells a little a union for that has low dead volume?
We do that with graphite Vespel adapters. So kind of a one-stop shop for that. So other kind of tips and tricks here. One of my tasks has been trying to torture test this. So I try and do exactly what I think our customers might do, the shortcuts they might do with that. And there haven't really been many issues with that. It is a good idea to kind of wait until the Jetanizer is above about 200. And what we've kind of noticed is that, the flame might blow out, but it instantly lights after that. I think it's collecting a little bit of water, so no big deal. There's a lot of water that's generated from that process, so not so shockingly. So if you let it get above that temperature, lights up great. And the other thing would be mainly just kind of keep an eye on your catalyst material with regards to your peak shape. And that's going to be true of any methanizer. I've yet to kill a Jetanizer, but we at least lowered the temperature to get an idea of what that looks like. So if you start getting some broadening, it's probably time to replace the jet or at least try and rebake it. Those are kind of the major ones.
Yeah, we've seen if you do poison it with sulfur, it's typically the main poison, you'll start to get reduced peak areas. But again, it takes quite a bit of sulfur to do that.
No, it's been good. And the last one, that if you are getting a little bit more of a deflection for oxygen than you expect, just rebake the jet and you should be good to go.
Interesting. And that rebake procedure was to turn off the hydrogen, is that right?
Yep, basically turn off the flame and just leave it sit at temperature, and it seems to recover itself. So looking at maybe a couple hours, and comes back and looks great. So
Awesome. Well, any other applications or things that you've tried that you want to talk about?
I think the main thing is, again, we're seeing a lot of interest in carbon capture, CO2, any of these kind of reformation things. And the Jetanizer actually is working very well for that. We have tried branching this out to some other applications. Keep an eye.
Okay, we'll stay tuned for that. Anything else that you wanted to talk about with this neat application and tips and tricks? Anything about that setup?
I think that covers most of what I wanted to cover.
Awesome. And so just for our users in the United States, if they want to, get a hold of you or get a custom GC setup, what do they do?
So if you go to our website, it's ssi.shimadzu.com. You can see what we have. There is also a sales rep locator, as well as the custom GC form should you need anything custom that way. And that would be the best way to get a hold of us.
Fantastic. All right. Well, what's next for you, Ian?
Just keep working on applications and keep it going.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to having you back on the show sometime. This has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.